Okay, this is the limit switch where the two red wires go. And this is the motor wiring, and that's where the two number 10s and ground go. We put the overload in. This is what keeps the motor from pulling too much current and burning up. That one started. And it has to go in this way. The little wheel that sticks out goes on this side. Okay, now we're going to put the bottom screw in. It goes right here. Okay, now make sure this is good and tight, because this is where the main current flows going from the power supply to the motor. And by the way, this is a manual motor starter, and the way you ensure that this overload is set is push the start button, then push the stop button. So now it's just set. So now this is only single phase. Always check these just to make sure they're tight. It's only a bar going across, but you have to be sure they're good and tight. Like that one was loose. So now we're good there. Okay, now the cord that you saw me make on a previous video that has this plug on it, that power goes to the top of this motor starter. So we're going to come through with this, and remember what I said, we put it through the hole and then we put the lock nut on, and that will put it into this box and it will seal it so no water can get in. It's watertight now. So we tighten that down with our fingers, and then we tap it to make sure it's good and tight. We just put this against one of those edges, and now that's very tight. That's good and secure. Now the green we're going to stick back behind because we're going to use it later. That is the ground. And the two hots go up here into the top of the starter. So I usually put the black on the first one, and we've got to get it in there and make sure it's good and secure as well. We don't want it slipping. So we loosen this screw, and put the wire in. Then we tighten and make sure it's good and tight. And once it's tightened, we give it a tug to make sure it's not going to slip. Now we're going to bring the white wire over to this side. So we're going to strip it.
Bless you.
Bless you. Now we're going to split it. We're going to make sure there are no grannies sticking out. And if you remember, grannies are the little wires that stick out the side, and we don't want any of those hanging out. So we loosen this up, and we put the wire inside, and now we tighten it up as well. And we give it a good tug, and it's in there good. So now we'll take the two hot wires that go to the motor. We will take the first one and put it over here on the side that has the overload. Strip it. Alright, now we're going to loosen it. It goes underneath, and I got a granny, we've got to fix that. It goes underneath, tighten it up good. Now, these are the two red wires. Those wires go to the limit switch. And what we're going to do is we're going to strip this back, and we're going to put it under the same terminal as this wire. That's where we're going to pick up one side. This is 208, by the way. And we're going to pick up one side of it, because if one side of it is going to ground, it will give you 110 volts, and that's what that solenoid on here is rated at. So we'll show you the solenoid in a minute. We haven't showed you that yet. But we loosen this up, and I always twist those wires around, because if you got a big wire and a small wire, sometimes that small wire will tend to pull out. So I just twist it around the big wire, and that way it won't pull out. So we tighten this one up now, and we tug on both wires and make sure they're not going to come out. We're good and secure there. So now this takes the power out to the limit switch, and when the power comes back from the limit switch, it's going to go to a solenoid, and that's on the other red wire, and this is what goes to the solenoid right here. So we're going to tie the black wire to the red wire. So that takes power out to the solenoid from the switch. So we're going to strip this back, and I got to go get a wire nut. Get one. Okay, we got the wire nut now, and I'm going to use an orange one because this is very small wire. Now we're going to tie these two together, and this will take the power from the limit switch out to the solenoid. And the solenoid's job is to stop the hydraulic pressure when it hits the limit switch. And we will show you how that works when we do a demo here in a few minutes. So now, remember I said that is 110. Now here's our ground that comes from outside from our plug. This is the ground to the motor. So we're going to cut those two off, and we're going to strip them. Okay, now this is the other side of the solenoid. Remember what I said, if we go from one side of the 208 to ground, we get 110, which is what the solenoid is rated at. So we're going to tie these together now. Alright, now we're going to tie all three of these together, because all three are, without a doubt, ground. We're going to do that with a red wire nut. Make sure it's good and tight. Now we're going to tug on all three just to make sure everything, so that's under there quite well. Now, that is basically it. That's all we have to do. So let's come around here. Let me show you this solenoid. This is all the hydraulics under here. This is the solenoid here, and that's the wire that goes, that was the black and white that you saw earlier. So that's pretty much it. That's how it works. We're going to bump this just to make sure the motor runs correctly. And it seemed to run fine. Now we're going to start it up, and we're going to bleed the air out of the line. Exactly what we want to happen. And it will not stop it, it's in the reverse, only if it's forward. And you can stop these, to clip these down and put them into place. These